Hey everyone, welcome to Two Car Pros. My name is Ryan and today I'm going to show you how to replace the spark plugs on your Ford Edge from 2015 with the 4-cylinder. This is really easy, very straightforward, something you can totally do in your garage. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. So before I do the plugs on this car, I'm going to go ahead and turn the engine on and I'm going to let that run for like maybe 5 minutes. I don't want the engine to get hot, but I don't want it to be cold either. So we can pay attention to this gauge, and once it gets maybe about there on the scale, we can go ahead and turn the engine back off. We just want the heads a little bit warm, but not hot and not cold. And I know it's a little vague, and I apologize. Okay, so right about there on the coolant temp, I think is going to be just fine. We'll turn the engine back off. Now we can remove our engine cover by pulling straight up on it. There we go. Might fight you a little bit. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and blow off the top of the engine with some compressed air. Whew, that was a dirty one. So make sure you do that way no dirt ends up in our spark plug wells and subsequently our engine. As you can see, these tubes that come off the intake boot are blocking our third ignition coil here, and I don't doubt that you could get that off without removing anything in the way, but for instructional purposes I'm going to go ahead and just remove these. So on the yellow one, you just pull up on the safety, and then push the remainder of the clip in, and then it just comes off nice and easy. And I like to just go from cylinder 1 over. Cylinder 1 looks like it's got a little bit of a wire organizer on there. So use a body clip puller. You can also use a standard screwdriver to get this wire organizer up and out of our way. And that gives us access to the bolt that holds on the ignition coil. So the next thing we can do is grab an 8mm deep well socket and remove this bolt, and it is different than the others. It looks like 1 and 4 have the same bolt, but 2 and 3 have a little bit different ones. So we can set that aside. These are really quite easy. You just need to move the safety backward. Yeah. And once you've moved that safety backward, you should be able to push down where my thumb is and remove that connector, just like that. And then we can take our ignition coil and pull that guy straight up and out. Very cool. So the next thing I like to do is grab some WD-40 and just spray a little bit down in the spark plug well and let that penetrating fluid do its stuff. And then after a few minutes, we can send our 5/8 spark plug socket down in there. Make sure it is fully seated on the spark plug nut. Attach our ratchet. And then we can break it loose. It's a little tough and it's kind of craggly, so what I want to do is retighten it just a little bit and then loosen it. So what I'm doing is I'm tightening a 1/4 turn and loosening a 1/2 turn. Tighten, 1/4 turn, loosen 1/2 turn, until it starts feeling better like it is now. And what that does is it essentially preserves the threads by kind of seesawing back and forth. And trust me, on aluminum heads like this, you really want it to be preserved. Go ahead and remove our plug out of there. So on my work surface, I have our replacement spark plug. It is made by NGK Laser Iridium. There's our part number, link down below in the description. And I want you to pay attention, as a lot of people accuse me of, not gapping plugs. But check this out. On the back of these, it says not to gap them. They come pre-gapped to the factory spec, which is either 30 thousandths or 35 thousandths. And you cannot gap them. And these come with a special sheath like this, so nothing can bonk against them in transit. So these are going to be right on the money. You can't change them anyway. You can compare them to the old plug and it looks perfect. So what we can do with this bad boy is with a gloved hand, this is what I like to do, is to feel the porcelain around. And you're trying to feel for any kind of cracks or anything, because if there's a crack in the porcelain or you dropped it or something, just go ahead and get another one because it's probably junk. You just want to be very careful to feel any kind of cracks in the porcelain. This is glass, it can cut you, that's why I say use a glove, but this feels absolutely fantastic, and we're going to very gingerly and delicately seat it all the way into our spark plug socket. Then I have some high temp anti-seize, link down below in the description. I like to just put some on the end of my finger because my brush is kind of destroyed on that particular bottle. And don't put any on the strap, you just want to put some on the threads like that. That looks great. That will ensure that it will come out next time we're doing plugs. Now, normally I would just take off over to the car, but there's more things on my work surface, so you know there's more good stuff. Here's the ignition coil. This is the ignition coil boot, and Ford does recommend to change these with every single spark plug change, and honestly these are like $5 or something, maybe $7, brand new from Ford, so I definitely recommend it. So you can take those out of the bag, and of course the link is down below in the description. So you can see it's got that new spring in there, and we can just take this off of the old ignition coil. I'm just going to put a little dab on this end. So I put a little dab of dielectric grease in the ignition coil boot, press that straight on, and then I'm going to do the same for this end. It doesn't have to be a ton, that is totally plenty. And now both of these are ready to go back on the car. So we can carefully lower our spark plug into its place and be very ginger screwing it back into the head. Now if it gets tight too quickly, you know, it doesn't feel quite right, go ahead and back it off and remove it, because you don't want to cross thread these, and it's really easy to do on aluminum heads. But this one's perfect. There we go. And with it still attached, I can grab our torque wrench, and our torque spec today is 106 inch-pounds. There we go. And then when you're pulling your spark plug socket, pull it straight up and out. You don't want to seesaw it to either side and potentially crack that porcelain. So be very careful to come straight out with it, just like that. Then we can grab our ignition coil, place it back into its home, like that. Replace the 8mm bolt. I know everybody wants a torque spec for every last thing in the world, but on this guy, just wrist tight is fine. It's just 8mm and it's going into plastic. Be gentle. And then we can grab our connector, place it back on the ignition coil until you hear that nice click, and then slide the red safety forward. Just like that, and you've already done one. We can move on to 2, 3, and 4. And don't forget to put your wire holder back for cylinder number 1. Just press this on. So 2 is the second verse, same as the first. This time I'm going to do the connector first. It really doesn't matter. Remove that, 8mm. Set that aside. Pull our ignition coil straight up and out. Leave a little bit of WD in there, not a ton. Just some. Wait a few minutes, and then send our spark plug socket down in there. Make sure it's fully seated on that nut, which it is. Ooh. So I broke it loose, but it didn't feel quite good, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten that again a little bit. Tighten it up a little bit. Quarter turn, half turn. It works every time. It always works. That's such a good trick. Go ahead and get our old plug out of there. Just like before, I have my anti-seize and my plug loaded up. Gingerly put it down there. Grab our torque implement. 106 inch-pounds. There you go. Go ahead and very carefully remove our spark plug socket. Go ahead and replace our ignition coil. Just like we did before, no different. Place our 8mm bolt. Again, just wrist tight's fine. That's plenty. Grab our connector, slide it in place. Slide the red safety in place, and we can move on. To get access to 3 and 4, I think it's actually going to be a lot easier to just remove the intake here. Shouldn't take that long. Just move this hose clamp down, and we can pull off this line. Sometimes it's easier to push off a line than pull it. Yeah, like that. There we go. And there are 2 7mm hose clamps we can loosen. That's perfect. This one back here as well. And we can pull that off of there. Pull it off of that side and get this tube up and out of the way, and look how much easier that is going to make our lives. One thing I'm going to do is take a shop towel and I'm going to put it into the intake so that way nothing gets down there, because that does leak directly into your engine, or more accurately your turbo, but you get the gist. So now we can focus on cylinder number 3. It is exactly the same as the other cylinders. Go ahead and remove that bolt, push back our red safety, press the black part, not back all the way, there we go. Pull that connector off, pull the ignition coil straight up, drain a little WD, not a lot, wait a few minutes, put our spark plug socket fully seated, we can loosen. Oh, see, you hear that sound? That's not a good sound. Tighten it back up. Back up. Tighten it up. Quarter turn, loosen half turn. And I know this might seem superfluous or annoying or time consuming, but trust me, it's worth it to not gack those threads on the way out. Especially if they feel, I guess the word would be like crumbly. It feels like cracky while you're taking it out. When you experience it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Pull that spark plug up and out. Gingerly put our new anti-seized spark plug in. That feels really good. Once again, grab our torque wrench. There we go. Pull our spark plug socket straight up and out. Then we can replace our brand new booted ignition coil with our dielectric grease loaded up. And replace our 8mm bolt. Wrist tight. Plug that bad boy back in. Excellent. Now we're on to our final ignition coil and spark plug. So it too has that wire holder. Again, standard screwdriver or a body clip puller works really good. And then we can get that guy out of our way, just temporarily, while we do our work. Back to our 8mm deep well. That one's really easy, you just need to break it loose. And retract our red safety. That, press the black bit, pull it back, remove our ignition coil, straight up and out. Squirt of WD, let that penetrate for a few moments. And send our spark plug socket down in there, nice and square. Break that loose. This one's coming out a little easier than number 3. Number 3 was the stinker. Number 4 feels normal. This is how it should normally feel. It shouldn't feel cracky or creaky or make that much sound coming out. Remove our old plug. Have our new plug carefully loaded and anti-seized. Drop that straight down. Feel it out. Feel the threads go into their home. Grab our torque wrench for the final time. Link down below in the description to this exact torque wrench, by the way. Oh, not quite. There we go. And then we can very carefully move our spark plug socket up and out. And then we can replace our dielectric grease loaded new ignition booted ignition coil. So that slides nice into its home. Replace our 8mm bolt. Very good. And wrist tight that bad boy down, just like that. Replace our connector. Nice. Slide the red safety forward. And then replace our wiring harness where it was, on those threads, just like that. Perfect. Our spark plugs are swapped. Now we just need to put our intake back on. Go ahead and remove our shop towel. Did a great job. We replace our intake. Slide that back into place. Now I noticed that right here there appears to be some threads, and it looks like there could be a bolt there, but mine was missing. So if there was a bolt there, I apologize if I missed it earlier. You will have to remove that. And then we can just tighten down our hose clamps. That's good. Excellent. And then don't forget to plug in this guy. Make sure that's fully seated on there. Grab the hose clamp, bring that back into where it needs to go. And squeeze that hose clamp until it's open, and then move it just behind the barb. You can actually feel it, and that's what it should look like. Then, these ones are really easy to put back on. The yellow one, you just push into place until you get a nice click, and then push the safety down. Very easy. And then the white one's even easier. You just line it up till you hear that sound and it's back on. So then we can put our engine cover back on, and it has these tangs or points that actually interface with holes on the engine cover. So you just gotta line those up. Might be a little tricky, you might not get it your first time. You're kind of just doing it blind. You can go based off of where the oil cap is though. It's helpful. And just push down until you hear a thump, like that, and like that. It's only in 4 places, like here, 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 and here. And there you go. So before you go anywhere or take off or anything, let's go ahead and start it and make sure our hard work is paid off. As you heard, this thing runs perfectly and is ready for the road. So if yours did not run perfectly and it's kind of stumbling and maybe it kind of sounds like it's misfire, I would check and make sure all the ignition coils are plugged in, and then if all of them are plugged in, I would unfortunately take every single spark plug out and look at them and make sure that the porcelain's not cracked on them, or you don't have a defective plug. So that's how to replace all 4 spark plugs on your 2015 Ford Edge with the 4-cylinder. Thank you so very much for watching. I also wanted to go over that doing this job yourself would probably cost you $40, $100 if you count the torque wrench with it. If you took this to a shop, they're probably going to charge you anywhere from $3 to $5, depending on the shop or a dealer or something like that. So doing this work yourself not only ensures that the job is done correctly, but the job is more budget friendly. So it is a win-win, as it were. Thanks again for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. If this video has given you any kind of help, please consider giving it a like. It helps out the channel a lot. And I'll see you next time.